Hello, and welcome to the final report on January 6th, a reading. I am your host, Robert Keniston. Welcome to Season 2. This season, we'll be revealing more details surrounding the events of January 6th by reading the narrative portion of the report. Additionally, each section will be read by various voices whom represent the diversity of the audience listening to this podcast. This is Episode 1. In this episode, we'll hear about Trump's big lie and his efforts to dissuade the American public by taking advantage of the Red Mirage. Reading this portion of the report is Marie Pettit-Gregson. So, without further ado, let's begin.
Chapter 1. The Big Lie. Late on election night 2020, President Donald J. Trump addressed the nation from the East Room of the White House. When Trump spoke at 2:21 a.m. on November 4th, the president's re-election was very much in doubt. Fox News, a conservative media outlet, had correctly called Arizona for former Vice President Joseph R. Biden. Every Republican presidential candidate since 1996 had won Arizona. If the president lost the state, and in the days ahead it became clear that he had, then his campaign was in trouble. But as the votes continued to be counted, President Trump's apparent early lead in other key states he needed to win, steadily shrank. Soon he would not be in the lead at all. He'd be losing. So, the President of the United States did something he had planned to do long before Election Day. He lied. "This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country," President Trump said. "We were getting ready to win this election," the president continued. "Frankly, we did win this election. We did win this election." Trump claimed, without offering any evidence, that a major fraud was occurring in our nation. Neither of President Trump's claims were true. He had no basis for claiming victory or that fraud was taking place. Millions of votes still had not been counted. The states were simply tabulating the ballots cast by the American people. Trump's own campaign advisors told him to wait, that it was far too early to declare victory. As the evening progressed, President Trump called in his campaign team to discuss the results. Trump campaign manager William Stepien and other campaign experts advised him that the results of the election would not be known for some time and that he could not truthfully declare victory. Stepien was of the view that, because ballots were going to be counted for days, it was far too early to be making any proclamation about having won the election. Stepien told President Trump that his recommendation was to say, "Votes are still being counted. It's too early to call the race." Jason Miller, another senior Trump campaign advisor, told the Select Committee that he argued in conversations with Stepien and others that night against declaring victory at the time as well, because it was too early to say one way or the other who had won. Miller recalled recommending that we should not go and declare victory until we had a better sense of the numbers. According to testimony received by the committee, the only advisor present who supported President Trump's inclination to declare victory was Rudy Giuliani, who, according to Miller, was definitely intoxicated that evening. President Trump's decision to declare victory falsely on election night and, unlawfully, to call for the vote counting to stop was not a spontaneous decision. It was premeditated. The committee had assembled a range of evidence of President Trump's pre-planning for a false declaration of victory. This includes multiple written communications on October 31st and November 3rd, 2020, to the White House by Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. This evidence demonstrates that Fitton was in direct contact with President Trump and understood that he would falsely declare victory on election night and call for vote counting to stop. The evidence also includes an audio recording of President Trump's advisor Steve Bannon, who said this on October 31st, 2020, to a group of his associates from China. Quote, "And what Trump's going to do is just declare victory, right? He's going to declare victory, but that doesn't mean he's the winner. He's just going to say he's a winner. The Democrats, more of our people vote early that count. their vote in mail. And so they're going to have a natural disadvantage, and Trump's going to take advantage of it. That's our strategy. He's going to declare himself a winner. So when you wake up Wednesday morning, it's going to be a firestorm. Also, if Trump is losing by 10 or 11 o'clock at night, it's going to be even crazier. No, because he's going to sit right there and say, they stole it. I'm directing the Attorney General to shut down all ballot places in all 50 states. It's going to be, no, he's not going out easy. If Biden's winning, Trump is going to do some crazy shit. End quote. Also in advance of the election, Roger Stone, another outside advisor to President Trump, made this statement, quote, I really do suspect it will still be up in the air. When that happens, the key thing to do is to claim victory. Possession is 9/10 of the law. No, we won. Fuck you. Sorry. Over. We won. You're wrong. Fuck you. End quote. In the days after the election, the president's own campaign team told him he had lost, and there was no evidence of significant fraud. When his campaign staff wouldn't tell him what he wanted to hear, President Trump replaced them with what Attorney General William Barr described as a clown car of individuals willing to promote various conspiracy theories. But Donald Trump was no passive consumer of these lies. He actively propagated them. Time and again, President Trump was informed that his election fraud claims were not true. He chose to spread them anyway. He did so even after they were legally tested and rejected in dozens of lawsuits. Not even the Electoral College's certification of former Vice President Biden's victory on December 14, 2020, stopped the president from lying. Throughout, the big lie remained central to President Trump's efforts to block the peaceful transfer of power on January 6, 2021. Chapter 1.1. The big lie reflected deliberate exploitation of the Red Mirage. President Trump's big lie on election night was based on simple differences in how Americans vote. In 2020, it was well known that Democrats were much more likely to vote via mail-in ballots than in person in 2020. On the other hand, Republicans generally preferred to vote in person on Election Day. In key swing states with tight margins between the candidates, the Election Day votes would favor President Trump and disproportionately be counted first. Mail-in ballots, which would favor former Vice President Biden, would disproportionately be counted later. In some states, it would take days to process the remaining mail-in ballots. The timing of how votes are counted created the potential for what is known as a Red Mirage, or an illusion of a Republican red victory in the early stages of vote counting. President Trump would appear to be in the lead on election night, but this was not the whole picture. Many mail-in votes for former Vice President Biden would not be counted on Election Day. Therefore, the actual winner would likely not be known on election night. The Red Mirage phenomenon was widely known prior to the 2020 presidential election. Chris Stirewalt was the head of the Fox News elections desk that correctly called Arizona for Biden. Stirewalt and his team tried to warn viewers of the Red Mirage. He testified that over the past 40 or 50 years, Americans have increasingly chosen to vote by mail or early or absentee, and that Democrats prefer that method of voting more than Republicans do. In nearly every election, Stirewalt elaborated, Republicans win Election Day and Democrats win the early vote, and then you wait and start counting. It happens every time. President Trump's campaign team had made sure the president was briefed on the timing of vote tallying. Stepien, his campaign manager, told the Select Committee that President Trump was reminded on Election Day that large numbers of mail-in ballots would still remain to be counted over the coming days. Stepien added that he personally reminded the president that while early returns may be favorable, the counting would continue. I recounted back to 2016 when I had a very similar conversation with him on Election Day. I recounted back to that conversation with him in which I said, just like I said in 2016 was going to be a long night, I told him in 2020 that, it was going to be a process again, as, the early returns are going to be positive. Then we're going to, be watching the returns of ballots as, they rolled in thereafter. Ordinarily, the Red Mirage anomaly does not create problems in the election process because candidates wait for the votes to be tallied before declaring victory or conceding. As Stirewalt emphasized, prior to President Trump, no candidate had ever tried to avail themselves of this quirk in the election counting system. President Trump, however, made a different choice. In an extraordinary breach of the American democratic process, he decided to exploit the potential for confusion about the staggered timing of vote counting to deceive the American public about the election results. He and his allies foreshadowed this decision in their statements in the months leading up to the November 2020 election. Chapter 1.2 Trump's Pre-Election Plans to Declare Victory. On Halloween, advisor Steve Bannon, who had served 4 years earlier as Donald Trump's 2016 campaign manager, laid out the election night plan. What Trump's going to do is just declare victory, right? He's going to declare victory, but that doesn't mean he's a winner, Bannon told a private audience. He's just going to say he's a winner. Bannon explained that the Democrats would have a natural disadvantage on election night because more Democrats would vote by mail than Republicans, and it would take time to count the mail-in ballots. This would give President Trump the illusion of a lead, and Trump's going to take advantage of it, Bannon said. That's our strategy. He's going to declare himself a winner. In an interview on Fox News the morning of the election, Bannon insisted that President Trump needed to address the nation that night to provide the narrative engine for how we go forward. During an episode of his podcast later that same day, Bannon clarified what he meant. President Trump is going to claim victory, right? He's going to claim victory. Tom Fitton drafted a victory statement for the president to read on election night. On October 31st, he emailed the statement to President Trump's assistant, Molly Michael, and social media guru Dan Scavino. Fitton wrote that Election Day, November 3rd, was the deadline by which voters in states across the country must choose a president. Fitton argued that counting ballots that arrived after Election Day would be part of an effort by partisans to overturn the election results. Of course, that claim wasn't true. Mail-in ballots are regularly processed after Election Day. Regardless, Fitton encouraged the president to preemptively declare victory. "We had an election today, and I won," Fitton wrote for President Trump. Early in the evening on Election Day, Fitton emailed Michael again to say he had just talked to him, President Trump, about the draft statement. Later that evening, before President Trump made his election night remarks, Michael replied that she was redelivering to him, President Trump, now. Roger Stone, President Trump's longtime political confidant, told several associates just prior to the election that Trump needed to declare victory, especially if the race wasn't called on Election Day. "Let's just hope we are celebrating on election night," Stone said. "I really do suspect it will still be up in the air. When that happens, the key thing to do is claim victory." Stone elaborated with colorful language. "Possession is 9/10 of the law. No, we won. Fuck you. Sorry, over. We won. You're wrong. Fuck you." Indeed, published reports echoed these warnings about President Trump's election strategy. 2 days before the election, Jonathan Swan of Axios reported that President Trump has told confidants he'll declare victory on Tuesday night if it looks like he's ahead. Swan added that Trump's team is preparing to falsely claim that mail-in ballots counted after November 3rd, a legitimate count expected to favor Democrats, are evidence of election fraud. If the vote tally swung against Trump after election night in states such as Pennsylvania, then the Trump team would claim the Democrats had stolen the election. Fox News election analyst Chris Stirewalt testified that he and his team had gone to pains to inform viewers that early votes would favor Republicans, but the lead would be illusory because the Trump campaign and the president had made it clear that they were going to try to exploit this anomaly. Others warned that President Trump could exploit the Red Mirage as well.
This podcast has been a production of 2008 Studios under a contract with SAG-AFTRA. Casting support services has been provided by Breakdown Services. The recordings herein are property of 2008 LLC. Any inquiries to collaborate or contact can be sent to info@2008.com. That's info@20-08.com. If you enjoyed what you just heard, please feel free to share this podcast. And of course, please subscribe to be updated on future episodes. Thank you for listening.